What have we gotten ourselves into? We are about to fully process 55 gallons of mixed head stamp 223556 cases. We're going to cover the entire process in this video. Gavin Gear and Kyle Shields here from UltimateReloader.com. In our last video, we kicked off this insane two-part project. The first part is this video, which is bulk processing 55 gallons of 223556. We got 223! You ready for this, Kyle?
Yes, excited for this one actually.
Part two will be approximately 90,000 9mm cases.
Holy moly, look at that.
So Mojo Precision sent us two 55-gallon drums full of brass. Check out that video for a little bit more info. We also did a video on our Dillon case cleaning gear where we did some tumbling of the first 5-gallon bucket of 223556 cases. This is a really fun project. We're taking this automated equipment. What we've got here is the Mark 7 Apex 10, and we're really using it the way that it's meant to be used. You know, not just doing a quick video or doing a one-off little project. These machines are intended to be used all day, every day. So I'm really excited about getting this going. And you've already started to take a look at the gear that we're going to use. One of our main partners for this video is FW Arms. They make some insanely good dies, case prep equipment, other parts and accessories. So great news, FW Arms has stepped up with the UR10 discount code, which will save Ultimate Reloader subscribers 10% off their entire purchase site-wide. Go over to fwarms.com right now and take advantage of this special deal. So Kyle, why don't you walk through with us what it is that we have here, and then maybe we can break down what we're going to install on the machine.
Sure, so like I said, we're going to be processing a lot, so that requires some industrial strength stuff here. So they got all sorts of dies, like you said, but we got our hold down dies here. Some are dynamic, some are static. There's a lot of different information, like a lot of different ways you might need to use either or, but basically we're going to use the dynamic ones because since we got mixed head stamp, we're going to want the most flexibility as possible. So we're going to use dynamic everything for both our hold downs and our decappers. So yeah, hold down dies, decapper dies, this is for bigger cases like up to 338.
Nice.
You got your basic decapper die, which this thing is awesome. So this might be perfect for your single stage press or something like that, but you could use it on the Mark 7. And then we got the ones that I've selected, which is the cream of the crop of their dies here, the dynamic hold down die and their dynamic auto centering decapper. And we also got the Burdan Sentry, which will detect Burdan primers, but we'll also use it in the 223 setup as well in case something happens, something gets stuck in the case, it will stop itself.
We're going to come back and do a more in-depth video on all of this FW Arms gear, but we kind of wanted to set the stage and talk about kind of what we'll be using in addition to the Mark 7 Apex 10. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the process. You've already done a little bit of a pre-staging and a setup and a kind of an initial run-through. So we'll cover that next. Right, but you know, by the time we get to the finish line in this video, we need to get everything up and running, and we do have a strategy for case cleaning, which is going to be tumbling. Right, we're going to see if we can just dry tumble the cases, and then we're planning on using Hornady one-shot lube. Is that correct?
Yeah, okay. That's an option. We can make our own or use one shot. So yeah,
and we're going to have to clean off that lube when we're done with this before loading, which will be covered in completely separate content, separate series.
Right.
One of which will be bulk loading 556 223 on the XL750. That'll be fun, right? We're going to have plenty of brass to play with for that. But we're going to have some things to figure out along the way here. The cleaning off of the lube. Once the machine is up and running, kind of little checkpoints, right? So we're going to keep track with the round counter on the Apex 10. Where we're at in the process, we'll get a total when we make it through the 55-gallon drum. One thing is for sure, we're going to be greasing up the Apex 10 on a periodic basis, and we're going to be really running this equipment through its paces. So, Kyle, why don't you next get things set up on the machine, and we'll do another quick checkpoint as we make our way out of the harbor for a ship, right, on this crazy voyage. You know, we're going to get into wherever the destination port is. We might have a little bit of wear and tear on our boat, but it's going to be a fun voyage, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Me too. It's going to be fun.
All right, let's do it. Well, we're just about to get going. We've got a few things that we've done here. We've got Burdan Sense, we've got our dynamic hold down over the swaging station, we've got the full length sizer, and the trimmer. So I set up the trimmer. Why don't you kind of talk about the setup on the other stations, and then I'll cover trimming.
Sure. So yeah, for the decapper, pretty easy. Just follow the instructions that FW Arms included. A little QR code that you can scan. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
So just follow the quick video there, set that up. Same for Burdan Sentry. Just pop it on the top, plug it into the remote stop on the machine. Gave it a test. Actually dropped a bullet in one of our cases to see if it would stop. It did, so everything's working there.
Good.
We also got decap sense from Mark 7 on the back there, so if it doesn't go through, it'll also detect that. We've got the hold down die, which will dynamically adjust to the case head thickness of each piece of brass. So since we're doing mixed head stamp, that's going to be really useful for our swaging. We got the swaging set up and verified with one of our half cut cases there that we cut out in the mill. And then I set up the full length sizing die.
What was good about the swaging setup was, we had a pin gauge, but then we also hand primed some cases to make sure that it was swaged well enough, and that hand feel, there's like no substitute for that. Like, is the priming interference fit correct, right?
Yeah.
And is there any obstructions? And it's really nice to get that dialed. And we're gonna have to see, obviously. What I want to do is run a bunch of cases through this, do a visual inspection, like pull every 5th, 10th one off or whatever, and then also prime a whole bunch of cases to make sure that we're totally happy. Because when we commit here, we commit, right?
Yeah, I've done about maybe an acro bin full of these of just different settings and messing around. And so far things have been smooth, but we have yet to fully send it and see how things are going to go. So that's what I'm really
The ship is
anxious
still in
for.
the harbor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just about to head out.
We're like double checking everything. Is it ready? Are we going to go?
Yep. So back to the full length sizer. This is one of the Pro die. Full length sizer for 223 round.
Yep, it's carbide, so it's their Pro
Excellent.
Series stainless ones. Pretty awesome. Looked up your video on how to set that guy up from the previous Mark 7 9mm.
We use our own videos all the time.
Yep, it's very useful. And then like I said, you set up the trimmer, so they sent us the carbide trim die, which should help really well with keeping the operation smooth.
And this is really easy to set up. Basically, what you're going to do is put the tool hole down at the bottom and crank the die down until it contacts the shell plate. Back off approximately half turn, not super critical or anything like that. Lock that up and then start turning, the trimming motor down. And what I like to do is I like to lower the tool head on a piece of brass so that it's up in the held position. And then I just, with the motor off, crank it down, and basically the end mill rotates with the motor. But when you see it stop rotating, that means it's contacted the case mouth. And then I raised the tool head and gave it that extra bit more. We did a trim. We're at what I calculated for min length and min trim length with our case gauge was about 1.746.
Okay.
And so that was kind of my target. I think we were at 1.750 approximately for the first trim. Kept incrementally cranking the motor down just little by little until we're at that exact number, that we want. And then there's another lock ring on the top. Once we were happy with that, we got this, vacuum suction assembly in place. Now you've 3D printed an adapter here, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I think that's going to become very useful. I wanted to avoid any duct tape or funniness with the hose adapting or whatnot.
We would never do that. We've done that multiple times.
Gorilla tape, So, no, didn't want to mess around this time. Took the time to slice up a print I found online from Printables. And
the perfect use case for 3D printing. When you need one of something and that something is very specific, and it would be difficult to manufacture or prototype on our machines. So good job on that.
Thanks.
Case feed is now turned on. It looks like we've got cases up.
Yeah.
So I think it's time to take this ship, point it towards the open sea, and we've got digital clutch at 5.
You also changed the bottom slowdown.
Bottom
right?
slowdown, yep. Gave that just a little bit. So I don't know. Are you ready to go?
We can give it a try.
Okay, let's do this. So we need the trimmer on.
Yep.
We need vacuum on.
Yep.
Here we go. Some vacuum buffeting, huh?
It is.
There it is, number
All
one.
right, yes.
You want to give a case overall length on that?
Sure. 1.7480. Awesome.
Yeah, that looks really nice.
Yeah, that's clean. I really like it.
Rock and running.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Okay, so a couple little hiccups there. We got through about 85 cases, and we actually put them through twice, and here's why. We were at about 80, and I took a look with the case gauge, one of the cases, and also fed it through my 223 trainer, and found that the bolt was pretty stiff on close, and the case gauge indicated it was a little proud.
Yep.
So we took the full-length sizer, cranked it down just a little bit to bump the shoulders a bit more, and it passed both checks after that point. And then we also had a case feed jam, which dented the body of this case. This is all normal teething issues, and it's going to be something that we're going to have to just continue to refine. So the good thing is we're out of the harbor. Ship hasn't sunk yet.
Not yet.
little bit of salty mist came over the bow, right?
Yeah.
But so I think what's next is we're going to lube up some more cases with one shot and make it through probably the next 1,000 and see how that's going.
Sounds like a plan.
Should we do it?
Yeah, let's do it.
So here we are. We're over 1,000 cases put through the machine. A little bit painful at first. A call for some help, some tweaks that have really helped things. And initially, the problem was digital clutch, right?
Yep.
We were using the one shot, and we probably weren't putting enough on or whatever, and it was just kind of a lot of friction in that sizer.
Probably vaporized before we could actually.
Yeah.
Before it used, anyway. Before we got there, yeah, probably flash vaporized or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
We had. Let's talk about the total number of failures. We got 12 cases. Is that right? That have been trashed.
That's right. 12 of varying failures, varying from ones being punctured, which this was pretty crazy to see and happen actually.
And Beard and Sense caught that one, right?
It did, yeah. Case feed failures, some crushed ones, interestingly. So trying to keep an eye on. It was like juggling, trying to load more cases, lube more cases, do other things over here, and get B-roll, and then keep this running. So it was quite interesting, even though it's just these 12. So, yeah, it's 12. It's not bad, but pretty extreme.
Some tweaks on our trim length as well.
We did that.
It kind of settled in at like 1.755-ish.
Yeah.
Took that down to 1.746-ish. Things are going to vary 1,000th or two, which is great.
It's pretty normal.
I got the SAMI specs here for the cases, and we can go down to 1.730 on the low side. It felt like that was a little bit extreme, so we're kind of hovering right there. We did talk with Michael Halleck of Vantage Research. Let's play that conversation for a minute.
Removing case lube, I'm a big fan of dry tumbling with some kind of solvent like mineral spirits, and it takes about 30 minutes and the case lube's gone. Whenever I do cob, it can be kind of dusty, so I take, if you're using like a Dillon CV 2001, I do a whole dryer sheet, tear it in half, and then that takes a lot of the dust out. I've been burned by having media stuck in flash holes before.
Yep.
And so after trommeling it, I just run it through the press on digital clutch 0 with no dies except for a single decapper with a small pin in it. And that way it'll punch out any cob that's left in there. I've had a lot of success with the lanolin mix.
Okay.
And the nice thing is, if you find it to be a little sticky, you can always just put a little more lanolin in it. I have this system where I get, and you can kind of make it out of anything, but I found cardboard is kind of awesome for this. But when the cardboard gets a little bit wet with lube, when you roll the cases around it a little bit, it helps make sure that the backside of it got coated well. That process works really well for about 1,000 pieces at a time.
Okay. So do you try and have fresh lube, or like if you lubed them the night before or a couple days before, would you spritz some more on there to get some solvent going, or do you worry about that? Because I found the lanolin to kind of dry to really tacky.
It's sticky.
Yeah.
It's sticky and packier over time. Yeah, I usually like to do it fresh.
Okay. One last question. How much mineral spirits do you put in your corn cob media to act as a solvent to remove the case lube?
I have been thinking about actually making a proper measurement, because right now I've got like a grandpa hand wavy couple capfuls. A little goes a long way. Well, good luck, man. We'll chat soon.
Yep. Thanks, Michael. So, based on the conversation with Michael, his suggestion of using a box and using the lanolin case lube, which was backed up by FW Arms and Mojo, like, it's kind of the heavy hammer, and you're going to have to be prepared for some post-processing tumble off with the mineral spirits in cob or walnut shell media. I think that's a small price to pay because we can basically put all these processes in tandem, hopefully. We're doing some lubing, doing some processing, doing some lube clean-off, kind of all at the same time, keeping all the wheels turning. And one operator, as it were, can keep those machines kind of running good. So the switch to the lanolin pretty much solved the problem with the digital clutch activations. In talking with Michael, he's running Dillon machines. I think he was saying digital clutch at 4 is usually adequate for this kind of thing. Might be right on the edge. And we were up around 8, if I remember correctly, 8 and 1,500 cycles per minute. Actually, per hour, sorry, 1,500 per hour. 1,500 per minute would be really, really fast. Yeah. So tell me, what do you got planned for processing from 1,000 to like 10,000?
Pretty much I'm going to keep an eye on this thing to hopefully everything's kind of starting to be worked out. I feel like we still have some kinks to work out of the system here. We've seen most of the problems that tended to happen frequently, so we were just kind of chipping away at them at a time. The case feed, who knows, that could just be anything. The trim length we solved, the full length sizing we solved initially last time. So probably just dial in maybe our case lube ratio if needed, if we're still running into digital clutch errors.
And I do have a separate story on that I did years ago. It's got like 150,000 plus views. It's kind of crazy. DIY, make it yourself case lube. It's basically 99% isopropyl alcohol, very low water, very high alcohol content, and then the lanolin. And I've got links to the Amazon product pages and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we've got more on the way. I think that's arriving from Amazon in a couple days. We'll mix up more of that. And until then, we'll just use up kind of what we have and see how it goes.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. It's really, I think we're down to case lube. Seems like everything else has been tweaked and adjusted the way we need, so it's just kind of chipping away from there. So hopefully we won't have too many issues between now and then, but we'll see.
Yeah, and I can hear that you've got more cases cleaning out there.
We do.
So I'm going to let you get back to it.
Sounds good.
So here we are at the over 10,000 cases processed milestone. What's the current case count?
11,098.
Nice.
Yeah.
A little difficult at first, and that's usually the case if you're doing progressive ammo loading or some of this automated case processing. You really have to get things into the right adjustment, figure out the formula. And one of the interesting things I thought was just how you kind of tweaked our lanolin formula. I think I had quite a bit more lanolin in my original mix.
Thinned it out. You can tell this is pretty thin, mostly alcohol and less lanolin. So using 10 ounces of alcohol for 1 ounce of lanolin, and it's been working really, really well. I think that helped a lot with our running into our digital clutch activation that we're running at 1,000 cases or so. So that happens a lot less now. So this is awesome. This is my second batch, so I've already burned through the first batch I made.
Nice.
Yeah.
And per the discussion with Michael Halleck, we've got the cardboard box. The cardboard absorbs some of the lanolin and helps coat the cases and all that, and that seems to be working well.
That trick works really well, yeah.
And then tightening things down occasionally. We did remove the decapper from the full-length sizing die as well.
Yep.
It was not needed because we've got decapping with the FW and that kind of
we got
thing.
that one punching through most of the primers. So yeah, that's been working really well. What I'm going to do next is get everything cleaned up. I haven't done any maintenance really, with the exception of tightening some screws and stuff.
A little bit of grease here and there.
Exactly, but I did that once. But yeah, I'm going to put some more fresh grease on here, take it apart, clean it up a little bit more. It's clearly showing a bit of use right now. So
nice.
I'm going to keep it clean, make sure everything's running smooth, so that way we can keep pushing and get to 20 and 30 and up to 45,000. So.
Nice. Let's
Yeah.
get this thing fired up.
Let's do it.
Well, we did it. That was awesome.
That was good.
Over 40,000 cases processed on this machine. An entire 55-gallon drum worth of 223 brass.
41,439. Some
Yeah.
change. Yeah.
A little bit under the 45,000 estimate, but pretty dang close, actually.
And that could have been anything. I did a lot of trial and error, a lot of testing, and it's a give-take thing. But
Yeah.
we were close. That's still a lot of brass. It's almost a drum full of brass.
Yep.
It's insane.
It took a little bit longer than I thought it would, but once we got kind of the kinks worked out and got the system figured out, I think that helped a lot, and our efficiency went way up.
Yeah, and a lot of that was me learning the machine and troubleshooting things that either I did or the machine was messing up. It's dialing things in. There's kind of a teething period anytime you change calibers or anything else, and there's a lot to get settled in. And once I figured everything out and was really familiar with this machine, which I am now because I was not before starting this, it went much, much smoother, especially towards the end there. We were smooth sailing all the way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, some of it was crushed cases from just the trim die hitting that, but we can get into that in a bit of all our issues. But I figured a lot of that out. It was pretty awesome watching the thing just sail along towards the end.
The amount of failures went down. What was interesting is we had more things like stuck cases at the end. As we were like experimenting with a little bit less case lube, we brought in our friend John to work on it for a while, kind of a team effort.
Yeah.
So let's go through what all of the issues were and how many we saw of each issue, starting with the least, which was punctured flash hole. Now that's an interesting one.
Yeah. In one of these cases, there's a flash hole that was off to the side from the center, and so it was punctured. And I just happened to notice that by chance. I happened to turn the case over and was like, oh, that's interesting. So there might be more. So who knows when or how that happened? I don't recall like specifically pulling that one and going, oh, at the time. It was just an issue that probably stopped the machine.
Yep.
And so that stood out to me, honestly.
Now, did we find any non-223-556 cases in this whole drum?
We did.
Okay, what was that
We
one?
had some 300 blackouts, and we had
Okay.
a few 9mm or so.
Interesting.
Which is...
But a pretty small number given how many we had,
yeah,
right?
I have 11 written
Okay.
down here that was caught anyway. So
Wrong brass.
Wrong
Okay.
brass. 300 blackout
Yep.
and 9mm.
And before that, we had 4 cases stuck in the die, which we can see here.
Yeah, that's one.
And that is always a problem with 223. And the reason is it's very slender and it's very long. And a slender case has a small case rim, not a lot of case rim area, and that means a lot of forces due to friction and not a lot of grab. And it's just so easy to tear that case rim right off.
Yeah, and the expander ball could have some play. It's case lube. I was not scientific on dumping cases in. It was about a certain much in a box and then spraying a lot in there. So that could be it too.
Okay, but so look, you're one of my employees.
Yep.
Let's say we're in a review, in an annual review, and you said, well, Gavin, I stuck 1 out of every 10,000 cases. I'm going to say that's a job well done.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I was not shy with the case lube either, so that helps.
Yeah,
but
thank you, Michael Halleck
Yeah.
from Vantage Research. his lube process and a little bit of tips and tricks in his mix and all that was super helpful because it wasn't going so good until we got that case lube thing
That
figured
helped
out.
a lot.
The application, the mix ratio, the lanolin, all that.
That was an immediate result. And he was right, of course, about the case bowl getting filled up with lanolin over time and it really smoothing things out. I noticed it did that. And you can look in there, it's pretty grimy, but you want that. So I never cleaned it because I don't want to touch it. It's like it's working itself out. So that was really awesome.
So you had 1 punctured flash hole, 4 stuck cases, 11 wrong cases, and then case feed issues, other. Tell me about that one.
So other is ones like, let's see here, like, oh, here we go. The case mouths are widened.
Okay.
So things like that would be under other. So that's not necessarily our fault. That's just how it came out of the tub of brass. But that's
someone stepped on it at the range or whatever happened.
Or maybe even one of us did or something on the floor because they sometimes will get on the floor when you're dumping cases in. Anything can happen. It's a common thing. You just clear out your case feed, tube and everything, and you're good to go. So that would kind of be case feed issues other. So that's what those were. So that really wasn't all that often. One time I didn't mark it because it wasn't a brass failure. These are only brass failures, mind you.
Okay.
One time one got stuck because there was some debris in the case feed tube. So things like that,
You have to expect a little bit of everything, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of the Wild West when you're dealing with a recycled product like brass that's range pickup.
Yeah, it's going to be varying. There's a lot of variables here.
The unfired ammo one, that was kind of interesting. We had some light strike primer rounds that still has a projectile. Yeah.
Like that.
Yep.
That was really interesting.
Yep.
And some of them have bullets in the case as well. You could shake the case and it has a bullet stuck in there. So
Funny.
Our Burdan Sentry stopped that one.
Nice.
So it would trigger the system.
Yeah, the FW gear was absolutely stellar.
Yeah. Very. Yeah, it's definitely
How many
designed
decapping
for
pins did you break?
0
Out of 41,000.
out of 41,000.
That's insane.
Yeah. And
They know what they're doing at FW.
They do. Yeah. There was one I definitely thought I broke a decapping pin. I took a picture of it, and I thought for sure it's time to replace the rod and or decapping pin. And sure enough, took some pliers, popped it right out, and it was fine. Moved up the sleeve by hand. It was free. I was like, that's insane. All right then. So
so funny story. We were talking with Will, the owner of FW Arms, and we're like, can you send us a whole bunch of decapping pins? Because we don't know what's going to happen. He's like, you're not going to need that many. What did he say? Like maybe he thought we'd need 4 or something like that?
He said he would guess 3 or 4.
Yeah. And here we have this whole bag of pins, and I guess it's a lifetime supply at this point.
Pretty much. Yeah, we'll be safe for a while there.
Yep. Swage failures, 17.
Yeah, and that could be due to not decapping, but that is when the bottom of the case is, chewed out from the swaging operation coming up and it popping the case out into the floor or somewhere else.
Right.
So
it's a lot of force to swage because it's not just opening up the diameter. It's actually kind of belling the entrance for a smooth primer feed and whatnot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then then we got unknown, which is just that. Unfortunately, those are unknowns. They stopped the press and they were in my bin somewhere. When we had John watching the machine, it might have gotten tossed in there. Maybe I was in the moment, like doing a million things and just tossed it in there. The machine stopped. It could have been anything. So that was just ones that looked clear to me and were somehow in there. Maybe they were not processed at all and they got spilled into a bin that I had next to the machine when I was pouring in cases or something. So, these were actually, that's wrong. These are the damaged case mouth ones, 18.
Okay.
Yeah. So case feed issues other are the ones that were the case feed feeder arm got stuck and it crushed the case and stopped the whole machine on indexing. So vice versa those.
So we basically did no damage to the machine itself. Is that correct?
Nope.
Yeah.
It would either digital clutch would activate or Burdan Sentry would activate or torque sense would activate.
Yeah, it's really an amazing system.
Any of those things would stop the machine from completely tearing itself up. And if it's frozen up and you can't jog it up or down, that something is wrong and you just stop, slow down, and look at what's going on. And oftentimes I would take a 3/4 wrench on the side there, turn the machine off, and just manually move the machine up or down to get a feel for what's going on. So instead of trying to destroy it, just turn it off and reevaluate. And
there's an implied feeling of urgency when the machine stops, and it's like you said, it's really good to take a step back and say, hey, this is not an emergency. I need to understand what's going on before I do something about it.
It's going to be much worse if you try to force something and break something. So that's much more expensive of your time and for the equipment itself.
So punctured case feed, damaged case mounts was 18.
Yeah.
Punctured in sideways case, was that when it flipped on its side before it could kind of get into the shell plate?
Yep, that's when case feed would it would spit it out or something, and the machine would come down and it would punch a case through its side. There's plenty of those somewhere. Oh, something like these. With some of them have a hole in it. It's kind of irritating. Yeah, that's it's kind of crazy that amount of force, but that's a punctured or sideways case there. Yeah, crushed cases in general, just when either the machine would crush a case or the die would trimming die or sizing die would
Part
crush
of
a
the
case.
case mount comes down on it, whatever.
It's either slightly misaligned.
Yeah.
Crushed cases from trimmer die. Why I separated that count and why there's a lot is because that's actually more on me than the machine.
Yeah, talk about that.
So the trimming die, or basically the spring around the machine,
This guy?
these two, yep, one of these, was not tensioned properly. And I had a little bit too much tension on it, so it was making the case mouths, the tips of cases were coming in a little bit. And so what happens is the dies will come down and hit the tip of the cases. And some of them have very slight chips on them, and I would notice those and catch them, and others were completely crushed.
Gotcha.
So once I adjusted the spring tension correctly around the shell plate, everything was fine. And that was towards the end.
Gotcha.
And I just didn't realize that. I thought I had adequate tension. It needed a lot less. So what I did was, should have been obvious, but for someone novice, is fill up the shell plate with cases, then adjust it, and just ever so slightly. Just very little tension, just enough to hold them in. And then I did a test cycle, and then that seemed to solve the issue.
These are the things where the second drum would go a lot smoother than the first drum,
Yes.
right? If this was our business day in and day out, you refine the system, you learn all the tips and tricks, hopefully you document them. We've started to use Microsoft OneNote quite a bit. The nice thing about that is you can have sections. One could be, case processing bottleneck or something. And then you can add a whole bunch of different pages in there. It's like a whole bunch of docs within a doc. And we do that with some of our manufacturing methods here. And, if one person goes through a problem and documents it and someone can read that like an operator's manual, and then step up to the machine and hopefully fast track to success, that's a really great thing.
They're pretty easy fixes overall. It's just understanding the concept behind it. Yeah.
Watching the machine work and giving it what it wants,
and
more or less.
That was a big part for me, is just learning everything about these automated systems.
Yeah.
And then, sealed primers or decap failures. And that is an interesting one. Towards the end there, we had some sealed primers. You'll see they'll have like red or green sealant around them.
Yep.
Those were pesky. Now, Will said you can adjust the die down a lot. And I didn't want to do that because we were getting some punctured cases, oddly enough. And John was flagging me down saying it happened before the sizing operation.
Yeah.
So I wasn't sure. And I just followed the instructions for the decap die, and it worked for most of them, like 99% of the cases. But there was these pesky ones at the end that just would not decap. And it was actually triggering the Burdan Sentry because it was so tough. So those I just flagged as an error. That could be also operator error. You could probably adjust the die down. But the reality is it didn't happen all that frequently.
Yeah.
So
I'm wondering how 9mm will compare because, 223 cases are tall and they're slender, and that means they tip around a lot. And I'm thinking with the 9mm case that's so short, it just might be a little bit less error prone when it comes to feeding up into the bottom of the sizing die or, the depriming, the decapping die and stuff like that. So we'll see. We did have a couple. So yeah, that was the last one. There were 61. So overall, the numbers are 264 out of 41,000, and that equates to 0.6%, less than 1% failure. It would be fascinating to know if we did another drum of this with everything that we know now, what that number would look like. I'm guessing it would be about half. And there are some case feed issues that still could probably get a little bit of fine tuning. I'm guessing that would probably take that number down. But FW was great, and Lyman and Mark 7 were really great with supporting us on this project and troubleshooting.
Yeah, they were awesome.
Let's talk about the carbide ring separation.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. So on the early Lyman dies,
the Pro dies,
they were using some sort of industrial strength adhesive. You might know more about that, but they had a different process, and this whole sleeve had pulled out on us. So that was their old method. Now they're brazing them, which this isn't the best example. We have the good die on the press. But now they're brazing the carbide sleeve in, so this won't happen with the new ones. So,
and this is a problem that we have at Ultimate Reloader a lot.
Yeah.
We're on the bleeding edge. someone says, hey, we're coming out with a new product. Do you want to use it? Do you want to do a video on it? And, you know, not all of the bugs have been worked out at that point.
Yeah.
So we're kind of guinea pigs, I guess, in a way, and we're committed to bringing updates regularly. This is one of the first Apex 10s, and there were some priming system problems on the first one, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be following up on that when we get those replacement components and whatnot. So, you know, it's great to have direct access to the manufacturer to help them in this way, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes we literally do pre-production testing off camera and give the manufacturers feedback and that kind of thing. It's just really fun.
Yeah, they said this isn't a common issue, and if you have one of the earlier dies, contact them, and they'll replace it. So no big deal, they'll take care of you.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was a success. Again, like I said, it took a little bit longer than I initially thought it would, but when you think about the complexity of what we were pulling off in the first time, this is the biggest reloading related project we've done. Yeah. We haven't ever done 40,000 of something. Granted, this was, you know, processing and whatnot. We do have a video bulk loading 223-556 on the Dillon XL 750 that you're going to want to check out that used some of this brass and that kind of thing. Let's talk real quickly about what's next. We got more FW gear, and we've got a big 9mm project, which we don't know exactly when that's going to happen. We're kind of gearing up for it at this point. What are you thinking?
I would like to run the machine faster once I get that dialed in. That's for sure. I want to test it. I really do. But yeah, I'm hoping, and 9mm should be easy, as you were saying earlier, since we're not dealing with bottlenecks. Yeah. So yeah, once I get everything dialed in, I'm going to, of course, clean the machine and everything, get everything spiffed up and caliber changeover and everything like that. But yeah, I'm really hoping that will be even faster and smoother. And most of all, I know with my experience with this machine now of what we were saying about 50 hours or so this took.
We got twice as many to do.
Yeah, and twice as many.
So maybe we need multiple machines going.
That might be another option too. So
yeah,
everything should be smoother now that I know the ins and outs of this thing. So
yeah, we're also looking at products like roll sizer.
Oh yeah,
because the Glock bulge, etc. You know.
Oh yeah.
If we roll size, that's going to help chambering and help ammo reliability and all that.
And I'm sure I'll be recruiting your help for the 9mm setup because I haven't really loaded pistol too much before.
Yeah.
So sizing it, getting everything correct is a little bit new to me. Bottleneck I've done, but
nice.
So that's going to be interesting, but it should be faster. So looking forward to that.
What we'd like to know is, what do you think of this crazy project that we just completed? It felt so good to get to the finish line. I remember watching it eclipse 40,000 and then watching the last cases feed through the machine. Just like, wow, what an investment. What a learning experience.
It was.
You know, good job.
Thank you.
Heading up the tech side on this and driving the production.
I appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. I really do. I really do like running this thing. I was anxious to get back to it every time we had it on pause during all of our other things going on. So yeah, it was great.
So if you have feedback about how this project turned out and the products that we used, the techniques that we used, drop a comment. And also, if you're interested in something specific with the 9mm project that we're going to have down the road a little bit, please add your feedback there. We definitely pay attention to you all and appreciate your feedback. That concludes this video, and that means it's time to wrap it up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, we're on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, where we've got unrestricted content, and Instagram. Make sure to follow us on all those channels. Ultimate Reloader also has a commercial solutions division serving law enforcement, the military, and the gun industry. We have some unique capabilities, including a comprehensive suite of recoil testing and evaluation capabilities, trigger profiling, and more. If you're interested in custom rifles like what we build here on the channel or gunsmithing services, you're going to want to go to rifles.ultimatereloader.com and get on the wait list. If you want to learn lucrative gunsmithing like what I show here on the channel, including building custom rifles and Cerakote plus a whole bunch more, you're going to want to check out the Colorado School of Trades, schooloftrades.edu. Thanks again for watching.